हाथ धोना हर समय, हाँ, जब देते हो धो रहे हो ना? हाँ हाँ, हर समय हाथ धोकर मुझे देना। Dr. Chandran, good morning. Dr. Chandran, good morning. Can you hear me?
Dr. Chandran, unmute yourself.
Yes, Dr. Sunil ji, good morning.
कैसे हैं
Nice.
सर?
You're looking very smart. Both of you are looking very
Very nice to see you after a long gap.
हाँ बताइए, हो गया,
Great pleasure.
आ रहे हैं, हाँ
So everything fine, sir?
Everything is fine,
हाँ
absolutely fine.
रखे
Yeah, and
रखे
I know this corona has really kept us away.
I was not very sure you will be joining from Delhi or from Bangalore.
No, I'm very much in Delhi from last 5 months.
आ गया अभी.
Once the corona set in,
Yeah.
all stopped. So today we have, I think, our entire soil science community from the country.
Yeah. Sure. Many people will be joining shortly.
Yeah.
चलिए, Dr. Chandran.
स्टार्ट करिए. 1 minute सर.
ये लगाना पड़ेगा सर, मैं ये सिस्टम सेट करके रखता हूँ, ये लगाना.
जय जय कृष्ण कर सतभार धन पशु धन मानव जीवन दुख मत धन राज सुवर्धन अज्ञान नव पत्नी पारी सत्य श्यामनाथ भारत जय जय कृष्ण कर सतभार प्रदेश सागर तट तक मरुधर से पूर्वोत्तर तक हर पथ पर है मित्र विकट की शिक्षा शोध प्रसार सकल तक आशा स्वावलंबित भारत की जय जय कृष्ण परिषद भारत की जय जय कृष्ण परिषद भारत की.
Good morning, all of the participants attending this virtual Foundation Day celebration program. Formally, I welcome Dr. Ashok Dalwai, CEO, National Rainfed Area Authority, and another dignitary, Dr. S.K. Chaudhary, Deputy Director General, NRM. And apart from these two distinguished gentlemen who have had illustrious career, on the dais are three important persons: Dr. Chandran, Dr. Dalwai, Dr. Chaudhary, and then among the participants, we have Vice Chancellor from MPKB, MAU, ex-Vice Chancellor Dr. Tapas Bhattacharya. Am I audible?
Yes, very much.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we have many dignitaries, and before formally beginning with the program, may I request the two guests, Dr. Dalwai and Dr. Chaudhary, to virtually light the lamp and begin the program. Thank you, gentlemen. Now, it is my honor to invite Dr. Ashok Dalwai formally and Dr. S.K. Chaudhary, DDG. Just before I hand over the mic to Director Dr. Chandran, a few lines about the two guests we have. Dr. Dalwai, as you know, is the CEO of National Red Area Authority, and he has had a very illustrious career, a son of a farmer who has deep interest.
Dr. Patil,
Yes, sir.
If possible, if not many people around you, you please remove your mask and speak. That will be very nice, if it is possible. Otherwise, his voice getting echoed.
Okay. Now, am I audible now clearly?
Yes, this is fine.
Yeah. Okay. So I resume, sir. So I was talking about Dr. Dalwai, who is a scientist in his own right, with BSc and MSc in economics, and he has deep interest in agriculture. And our director, Dr. Chandran, will be talking about his achievements. But just a small thing I want to share, that at the age of 21, he had cracked IPS exam. So in a way, he is a Gyaneshwar. In Marathi, we call Gyaneshwar. Hindi speakers announce it as Gyaneshwar. So we have two Gyaneshwars among us. One is Dr. Dalwai and Dr. S.K. Chaudhary. And as we are aware, Maharashtra is the land of saints, Rishi Munis, and these two persons are epitome of excellence. And in their own right, they have established themselves in their chosen career and almost on their pinnacle. So I don't wish to prolong my speech. About Dr. Chaudhary, I would simply mention that before he was formally recognized by ASRB or ICAR, much before that, he had got a very lucrative international offer, and it is his commitment to the country and to NRM that he politely declined, and the organization concerned was so frustrated that they called Vegan DDG to convince Dr. Chaudhary to join the international organization I'm talking about. And I remember, as many of us have seen this growth from scientist to DDG, we are well aware that country first for him. So farmers first, country first, that he has implemented in his career. And as I was talking, he is also a Gyaneshwar. So Dr. Dalwai, Dr. Chaudhary, I formally welcome you and hand over the mic now to Dr. Chandran, who is heading our organization NBSS ABC. Thank you.
Good morning to all and welcome to NBSS and LUP virtual meeting of Foundation Day. Myself, Dr. P. Chandran, Director of ICAR, National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning, welcome you all in this function of the 44th Foundation Day celebrations of National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning in virtual platform. Sirs, in this function, I heartily welcome the chief guest of the function, Officer CEO of National Rainfed Area Authority, NRAA, in the Ministry of Agriculture and Farmers Welfare in the rank of a secretary in to Government of India. As an agricultural graduate, Dr. already told, of PG in economics, Dalwai, as a chairman of Interministerial Committee on Doubling Farmers' Income, DFI, the 14-volume report is recognized as one of the most comprehensive and evidence-based strategies. I welcome you, sir, in this function. I also heartily welcome our guest of honor, Dr. Suresh Kumar Chaudhary, Deputy Director General, Natural Resource Management, Indian Council of Agricultural Research, Delhi, and he is an agricultural graduate of JNKV Jabalpur and PhD from MPKV Rahuri, and also from MPKV Rahuri. And he has got many awards. He was conferred with many awards, including Rafi Ahmad Kidwai Award, fellow of many societies. He is very close to us because he is our DDG, and most of the people know him very, very much. I welcome you, sir, in this function. I welcome all the vice chancellors and all ex-vice chancellors of agricultural universities and animal science and fisheries of institutes of Maharashtra. Now I welcome Dr. Askar and Dr. Adlul Islam, Assistant Director Generals of NRM, ICAR headquarters. I welcome all the directors of NRM institutes and directors of all ICAR institutes of Maharashtra, including those situated in Nagpur. I am very happy to welcome all the deans and directors of research of the agricultural universities of Maharashtra and other states. I do hereby welcome all ex-vice chancellors of agricultural universities, all my senior colleagues, including who has joined from different parts of the country. I also welcome all my colleagues, heads of regional centers and divisions, as well as scientists, technical, SRF, and students to this function. On behalf of all the staff of NBSS and LUP, Nagpur, welcome all the invitees and well-wishers, press, media, and all others in this function of 44th Foundation Day celebrations of
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Chandran, for your welcome address. Now, may I invite Dr. Chandran again for presenting in short the achievements of National Bureau of Soil Survey on its Foundation Day.
Good morning. Once again, welcome to the brief achievement progress of National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. Yeah, NBSS and LUP Nagpur has 5 regional stations situated in Calcutta, Jorhat, Bangalore, Udaipur, as well as Delhi, and its headquarters is in Nagpur. Next, please. Yeah, the genesis of this institute, for the information of the chief guest and others, the Government of India established an All India Soil Survey Organization in 1956. Later, in 1958, it was integrated with the land use planning scheme of the Central Soil Conservation Board, primarily to carry out detailed soil survey in the catchment areas of major river valley projects. In 1969, it was transferred to ICAR, and consequently, ICAR established the National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning in 1976 with its headquarters in Nagpur. The major mandate of the institute is to conduct soil survey and mapping of the soils of the country in collaboration with the relevant institutions, to conduct and promote research in national NARS in the areas of pedology, soil survey, remote sensing applications, land degradation, land evaluation, and land use planning. And the third objective is to impart training and education to create awareness on the land and soil and land resources of the state of and their state of health in the whole country of India. Yes. Yeah, our staff strength is 367, including 98 sanctioned posts and 160 for technical staff and 67 administrative as well as 38 supporting staff. We have about 65% filled at this point of time. Next, please. Major research achievements. Our major achievement is the soil map of India, which the country developed for the first time in 1996. Next, please. It is formed from the state soil maps of 1:10,000 same scale from all the states, and then district soil surveys of 78 districts we have surveyed before the soil map of states were developed, and 1:50,000. Then we have agroecological regions and sub-regions in 90s, and it was revised in 2015 and 16 and 2018. Now we have in areas under arid and semi-arid ecosystems, revised estimate is 53.2 to 45. It has decreased, but the semi-arid area has increased from 116 to 145.3 million hectares respectively. This map provides useful information for broad level agricultural planning of the nation. Yeah, apart from that, we have done a wonderful job on degraded lands of wastelands, and this was published in 2010. Sir, this is the first harmonized data set which shows that total degraded and wastelands of country is 120.7 million hectares, and other major contribution is due to water erosion for this degradation. Next, please. Dr. Patel. Yeah, then we have from the degradation, we have evaluated the soil loss and erosion assessment map of India, and it indicates that the complete about 40 to 45% area is eroded, either moderately or severely eroded. Next please. Then we have from the degradation map, we have developed a map of degradation under what is the total area of degraded lands under agricultural lands, that is 64 million hectare is under different types of degradation under arable and arable lands, sorry. Prime agricultural land delineation, we have also done it. Approximately, it is total prime land is 58.8 million hectares, which includes irrigated as well as rain-fed agricultural lands. Then stock map in collaboration with FAO and also with the Indian Institute of Soil Science, Bhopal, from the 2 lakh surface samples, and we have developed this map. The northern region and northeastern region are well contained, is well contained with the organic carbon, which is more than 1%. The other areas we have a number of the percentage of organic carbon is very less, which indicates these areas need organic carbon sequestration work. We have to increase organic. We have also done the area of priorities for organic carbon management based on the estimates of SOC stock per unit area. Vast areas of arid and semi-arid parts of the country are low in SOC, that is less than 0.5%. That means about 155 million, 0.8 million hectare of arid, semi-arid and subhumid area is the shaded area of the map. Will show that these can be taken for sequestration of organic carbon on prioritized basis. Next, please. Yeah, then our flagship program that we are continuing for the last 5 years is land resource inventory project. And for agricultural land use planning, we have about 292 blocks we have completed, including about 2,500 micro watershed under Sujala in Karnataka. We have 292 blocks till now. Next, please. In 122 different blocks across the country, which includes maximum from West Bengal 36 blocks and other blocks, Jharkhand 20 blocks, Karnataka 55 watersheds, including Maharashtra about 22 blocks we completed. Next. We have another very important project of Sujala. For the last year, we have completed about 250 watersheds in the state of Karnataka. It's a sponsored World Bank project. 1.45 million hectares was surveyed on the and a digital library has also been developed. For the last 1 year, digital database of 204 watersheds of Karnataka was created, and atlas and different thematic maps were developed and for watershed development planning. This has already been hosted in the WDD information digital platform. This is enriched geospatial database of NBSS and GeoPortal, adding the additional data sets on soil resources. And then we have developed web-based services for spatial data analysis, and then web interoperable mechanism has also been developed. Portal and the GeoPortal is Bhumi GeoPortal is also a part of the Krishi portal of ICAR. Bhumi portal is developed as a bureau's gateway for dissemination of web services. Next, please. Mobile application we have developed about 8 mobile applications we have developed, and these are the different mobile applications: land resource information system of Goa, potential crop zone mapper, and rubber soil information system, automated land evaluation system, soil health card, mobile apps, etc. Next, please. Next. Yeah, agricultural land use planning, we have done about 27 districts agricultural land use planning. This was as per the instruction of the Niti Aayog. These were the 27 districts organized. We have also organized training on how to use these maps and reports with the directors of agriculture of each district, and also district magistrates of the districts, each district. This is a very much outreach program, because this has been already been, next please, this has been already been, next please. Yeah, in Nandurbar, we can see a map of Nandurbar district of Maharashtra. We have given alternate land use plan Then degradation status, where we have to take up the rain harvesting. Potential one is there. We have to take up soil and water conservation measures, and this were
continuously. केले हो हो 600-700 लोकांच्या जवळपास वेटिंग आहे.
Now this has been already been deployed in the ICR. We developed that in the NITI Aayog's dashboard, Champions of Change, and we can see that these maps in the NITI Aayog's dashboard. Next, please. Yeah, we also have developed a mapping for red and associated soils of southern India. We have very good relationship was developed and indicating that models are reliable for determination of soil properties or mapping of soil properties of the area. Next, please. We have done this in Saucer and Kato. Then we have hyperspectral laboratories. Yeah, of Goa, Karnataka, Kerala and Tamil Nadu was generated for the red soil area. We have also developed for hyperspectral soil information system and Android-based user-friendly mobile application for visualization and disseminating, sharing and data mining of the hyperspectral signatures. Next, please. Next. It takes some time for change. Yeah, we have done in the basic research of soil formation, modeling soil forming processes. We have done some work, effect of climate and land use on soil organic carbon, because since climate is one of the 5 factors of soil formation, we have done it for South Gujarat, which was about 250 samples were used, profile samples were used. The change in land use after 1990 affected SOC contained in the deeper soil layers, that is 218 data, and it was the highest in the soil under plantation and lowest under the soils of cotton. Then we also observed soils under sugarcane, rice, grasslands have similar SOC contents up to 50 centimeter depth. That is not much difference in this land use system in organic carbon. Then the simulation of organic carbon under climate change scenario, what will be the status of organic carbon in 2020, 50 and 2080 that we have modeled under century carbon model. Four representative concentration pathways were used, and there is significant increase in soil organic carbon under treatments when we use 100% NPK plus FIM in all these models. Next, please. Yeah, we have apart from the agriculture, we are also utilizing the soil database for non-agricultural purposes. How we are predicting within the soils, within the soils from the surface, or laying optical. Sterlite technologies have had a MOU with us, and we are also doing for KEC International the angle of reforce, belt density ultimate along the transmission route of how they can develop the transmission structures, structural designs of foundation for this power transmission towers. This has been done for KEC International. Nirmal, it takes a few seconds. Yeah, we have, apart from that, we have institutional collaboration for potential areas for different crops. We have Indian Institute of Oil Palm Research. We have developed a potential areas for oil palm. and a National Research Center for Pomegranate for Sholapur. We mapped potential areas of pomegranate cultivation in Maharashtra. We have also developed developing a plan, crop planning for 17 crops for the whole India also in collaboration with the Indian Institute of Farming System Research. Next. We have PG education, sir. In this institute, we are also conducting PG education, postgraduate teaching and guidance for PDKV Akola student, land resource management. It is being done from 1987 onwards, and we have also training organized for the last year. We have, this is an international training was organized an interaction with the district-wise aspirational districts. Next, please. Next. Yeah. Next. We have about, sir, publications. We have about 76 research papers and 23 popular articles, atlases, research bulletin, etc. And one of my scientists also got Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed Award 2019. Dr. Raghunsh Mahendra Singh Raghunshi was awarded as a team member. Next, please. The promotion we found. We are also aware that the scientists should get promotion. If frequently scientists and all staff, the staffs, 8 scientists were promoted during the period. 3 technical staff and 4 administrative staffs were promoted, and new recruitment for supporting staff was also done for 6 persons. Media coverage. We have wide media coverage during all the functions are covered in the media. Next, please. Collaborators, we have SAC Ahmedabad, Department of Agriculture, Telangana, Department of Agriculture, Government of Andhra Pradesh, Forest Department of Maharashtra, Pokhara, Maharashtra, Indian Institute of Oil Palm Research, Vaisa, Gandhinagar, and Infra, France. Next. We have the new projects in the pipeline. We have already started some projects. Land resource inventory of Arunachal Pradesh we have initiated in the last year, November. Then LRI Tripura, the government of Tripura has already is in the pipeline. There will be funding for that. We have a project on. Then Pench National Park for ecological restoration, a project on LRI. Then Forest Development Collaboration of Maharashtra FDCM division for high resolution geospatial techniques or LRI studies. Then World Bank reward projects of Karnataka, Orissa, and Andhra Pradesh. They are all in the pipeline. In the last week we had a meeting with Bihar State. They are also ready to fund for the LRI of Bihar State. The major events, we have International World Soil Day, World Environment Day. Then Parliamentary Committee visit was there the last year. Then ICR Zonal Sports we conducted. Then 25th Regional Committee meeting we have organized. About 250 participants from different parts of this region, including Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh participated. Yeah, next please. The major events, the ICR Sports, then Institution Day, World Soil Day, then ICR Sports, Plantation. These are Kisan Divas, which also we have conducted. World Women's World Day. Yes, next please. Yeah, distinguished visitors includes our Honorable DG, Dr. Trilochan Mahapatra sir, then Janak Raj, ex-Animal Husbandry Minister of Karnataka, Maharashtra. Then Dr. Chaudhary sir visited us. Dr. T. Bhattacharya sir, he is a former VC of Dhapoli. He also visited this and gave a lecture on World Soil Day. Thank you very much, sir. This is a brief, and I hope we have done a lot of work, and we can do better with the help of all the cooperation of the state government as well as our staff, we can do far better.
Thank you, Director Dr. Chandran sir. And on the next line of events, we have release of publication. So formally, I request Dr. Ashok Dalwai and Dr. S.K. Chaudhary to release the publications that have been brought out during the last year, and the publications will be displayed one by one on the screen. So the first publication I request both the dignitaries to release is Adoption of Improved Technologies Enhances Soil and Productivity. This is authored by Dr. Vasu, and there are some 4 or 5 authors with him. This is a headquarter publication. Next in the line is Land Resource Inventory of Rayachoti Mandal, YSR Kadapa district of Andhra Pradesh. This is a Bengaluru Center contribution, and it is authored by Chandrakala and her colleagues. The next one is Land Resource Inventory of Jagnath Block, Agra district of UP, and this is authored by Dr. Jaya and a contribution from Delhi Center. Next in the line is Land Resource Inventory of Rivoi district. This is from Jorhat Center, the only center which is situated in area. So they have contributed this report, and area of study is from Meghalaya. Next one is from Bangalore. This is a publication entitled Enhancing Coconut Productivity in Kerala, Simple Solution to the
Complex problem.
Complex problem. And we come to a web publication or sort of web service. This is real-time soil survey data collection system. This is developed by our section of the headquarters. So with this, I request both the dignitaries to declare this publication release virtually. Thank you, sir. Now, this is a new initiative. We have had this newsletter for quite a long time, but somehow there was a discontinuity last 5-6 years. Now the newsletter of the Bureau is coming in new avatar, that is e-avatar. So I request the dignitaries to release this e-newsletter of ICR in latest and edition. So I consider it as released. Yeah, and there are some awards received by our staff during the sports event. So we get for the award, and there are some awards given to scientists, technical staff, and administrative staff. First among them is this is a Young Scientist Award, Outstanding Young Scientist Award. DDG sir and Dr. Dalwai sir. He is a young scientist, Abhishek Gangir, and he has been awarded with this Outstanding Young Scientist Award. In technical category, we have a Kolkata Sector Technical Officer named Shri K. Naitra. Then, in a Senior Technical Officer category, we have Dr. Bhagwati Lal Taylor from Udaipur Center. And another technical staff who has done outstanding work during the last year is Pradeep Kotoki. He is from our regional center, Jorhat. And in the administrative category, Shri Pradeep Kumar Das from Jorhat has done outstanding work Then among the supporting subcategory, Sri Mohanlal Pujwal from Udaipur Center. And I read out the list of persons who achieved and brought from Lawrence to the Bureau. Amongst them is Sri Ajay Meshram, who won a medal in cycling, that was the first position by securing first position. Then Sri Vikram Singh Sakra secured first position in long jump. Then we have a young scientist Vincent Kumar Sharma, who won second prize in short put. Then as a team, this is a good combination of scientist, technical officer, administrative staff. Ajay Meshram, Abhishek Jangir, Vikram Singh Sakla and Sajid Kumar who won the second prize in relay race. And lastly, in cycling, Dr. R. Srinivasan secured a third position. And the ladies are not left behind. Our scientists and administrative staff, Priya Kodape and Ms. Radhika, they won first and third position respectively in two different events. So, because of the joint efforts of all the sports persons and the talent we have, the Bureau was able to win the Best in Award for the month. So, I thank the dignitaries for releasing the publications and honoring the sports person as well as achievers among scientists, technical and administrative categories. Thank you so much. Now, may I request the guest of honor and Deputy Director General NRA ICAR, Dr. S.K. Chaudhary, to deliver the address. Sir.
शेयर करो उसको.
Unmute. Did you, sir, unmute yourself? अनम्यूट कर दिया. इनको अनम्यूट करो, इनको म्यूट करो. सबको म्यूट करके फिर उनको अनम्यूट करके देखो. पता नहीं क्यों नहीं अनम्यूट हो रहा. सबको अनम्यूट. नहीं केले ऑलरेडी केलेले
अभी हुआ अनम्यूट. Anyway, namaste, most respected Dr. Ashok Dalwai ji, the CEO of National Rainfed Area Authority and a great visionary economist of this country. He is not only the CEO, but for ICR fraternity, we always consider him as one amongst us, because he is the man who understands very well what we do, what we are supposed to do, and what is the relevance of ICR and all ICR institute as a whole for this country. So, sir, I add my own words of welcoming you for today's this Foundation Day function of National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning. Dr. Padikal Chandran, Dr. P. Chandran, the Director of NBSS LUP Nagpur. Many director colleagues from different NRM institutes. I also find Dr. Ashok Dhawan, the Vice Chancellor of MAU Parbhani. I don't know whether he's present or not, but virtually his room is visible here. My colleagues, scientists from NBSS LUP, heads of different stations, the different divisions in the institute, heads of various regional stations of other institutes of NRM division. Many people, they wanted to join this function, but because of some limitations of numbers, I don't know what happened, but because of some problem with the host, I think they could not join. But I'm finding many requests here and there. They wanted to join. So I congratulate all of you at the occasion of 44th Foundation Day of NBSS LUP Nagpur. Dr. Ashok Dhawan ji aage, namaste, Dr. Dhawan sahab. So in the history of any institution, in the service of the nation for more than 2 decades, now 4.5 decades, the institute has made so much so for the country, and therefore this becomes a great and very proud moment for all the staff members to celebrate the achievements and celebrate the Foundation Day. And on this Foundation Day, on the occasion of this Foundation Day, we are really blessed to have Dr. Ashok Dalwai ji with us. Dear friends, right in the beginning, I would like to congratulate to all those who have received different awards today, whether in scientific category, technical category, administrative category, or supporting category, and also the sports person who have made significant contribution in ICR sports. They also deserve appreciation. Also find many of our retired scientists, those who are connected, and many scientists from all the regional stations, and many wanted to connect, but unfortunately could not. But I add my own words of welcoming all of you, and it is really wholehearted appreciation, and really the work you did for last 45 years, it requires to be appreciated in all the corners of the country. Friends, when this National Bureau of Soil Survey was established, before that, the country had no systematic arrangement of soil survey. I don't say that there was no soil survey. The arrangement was there in one or the other form. Then this institute was established, and since its inception, continuously and consistently, the institute is working hard to serve to the cause for which it is established. Although most of the research is done, they were pathogenic in nature, and soil mapping was another outcome of the establishment of this center. The land use and land use planning particularly, that part really needs relook, and that part's really further strengthening. But so far soil mapping is concerned, probably the achievements of NBSS LUP are par excellence than the many international organizations engaged and involved in this line. The mapping outputs or map outputs of the institute, they are no less than the outputs of ISRIC or any other international organizations. If you compare globally, continentally, probably you will find that there are only few institutions across the globe. They are dedicatedly working on pedology, pedogenesis, and soil mapping. So from that point of view, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate all your efforts which you did. In the recent past, as Dr. Chandran has made a presentation, in the recent past, the institute has given a great input for mapping of aspirational districts to Niti Aayog, a great input in land degradation mapping, a great input in harmonization of data sets available in the country and mapping the degraded lands, and also revising the agroecological regions in the country. In this endeavor, the fundamental and basic studies, they were also taken up by the institute, and use of modern tools and techniques, and the latest remote sensing imagery, hyperspectral techniques, and also the digital mapping. These are some areas in which small beginning is made, but still we need miles to go. And particularly the area of hyperspectral remote sensing and digital soil mapping, these are the open area in which we have to go much far ahead. Dear friends, NBSS LUP does not mean that we need to confine ourselves to pedagogical research. The country's priorities, the country's commitment at the global level, and what we are supposed to do in the new era, these things really make our task much greater. And for that, if we want to confine ourselves only to remote sensing and GIS and pedogenesis, then probably we will not be able to address the problems holistically. Dr. Ashok Dalwaiji is with us, and all of us, we know that the country which has global commitments, particularly in the changing climate scenario. The first commitment very recently we made in COP14. In COP14, in clear words, we said that we are going to achieve land degradation neutrality. And this land degradation neutrality, where we committed that we want to go for 26 million hectare area to be land degradation neutral. When we say degradation neutral, we mean that the rate of degradation should be equal to rate of restoration. If this is the case, then from 21 million hectare, we want to go to 26 million hectare by 2030. So within a period of 10 years, we want to reclaim or aggregate 6 million or 5 million hectare area. This 5 million hectare area in 10 years means every year 5 lakh hectare area is either to be reclaimed through watershed approaches or watershed management approaches, or through reclamation of salt affected soils, or reclamation of acid soils, or reclamation of ravine lands, or reclamation of arid region. So these are the priorities in front of us. And institute, which is at presently looking of different land resource inventarization or definite flagship program, need to diversify its attention in this area now. When we say that we want to restore 3.5 billion hectare of ravine lands in next coming 10 years, what is our preparedness for that? What we are going to do for that? Then if we want to restore the arid lands or arid ecosystem, what is our preparedness? So this is not possible only through pedological studies. This requires much beyond. We need to go much beyond. And another commitment that if we want to go for this, we need to bring more and more data sets together and develop very refined and fine-scale data for the country. Not many organizations globally, I would like to tell you, they are engaged in the soil mapping nowadays. They are going for some alternate techniques. They don't go for the routine kind of soil survey or routine kind of soil mapping. They have developed some techniques by which they use their legacy data and come up with the very finely acceptable, at least 80% acceptability data that is being used in many of the countries. Across the continents they are doing. And many of the soil information systems, if you see globally, they are now giving more emphasis on this. And now when we talk of the aspirational district, some information you have given for a few districts and some more districts you are planning now, aspirational districts or some districts in Bundelkhand which requires immediate attention, or particularly the area or rain-fed area which require attention. This is possible if we give in clear-cut terms what are the units there and what kind of resource inventory is available, and basically looking to those things, then policymakers and then the politicians, they can prioritize the investment in these areas. For example, Bundelkhand, some districts of Madhya Pradesh, some districts of Uttar Pradesh, if we give that these are the districts where there is a great potential of rainwater harvesting is there, and government should invest in the rainwater harvesting. And if you provide a map of rainwater harvesting in Bundelkhand region, probably through NRAA or any suitable agency, we can give due priority and to solve some of the problems of the farmers. Similarly, the water harvesting potential of the country, in which NBSS has a great role to play, the environmental pollution which is happening across, and particularly the soil pollution. There are some sites in the country now where soil pollution is there. Can we go and give our input in this? Similarly, the simulation modeling. Now we are trying to model the climate change processes. We have the environment, we have the climatic information with us. We have soil information available with the NBSS LUP. We have some information with Indian Institute of Soil Science, some information with Kazri Jodhpur, some information with the IISWC Dehradun, and some other institutions. Can we club this information together and can come up with some doable solution? Can we provide some solutions to the farmers? But the role of NBSS LUP would be not only to map, but also to tell that what are the possible land uses is there and what are the remunerative land uses farmers should go for. At present, what we are committing in Atmanirbhar Bharat, what we have committed in doubling farmers' income, what we have committed in some other national priorities, including soil health and sustainable soil management, that needs to be fulfilled. Time is not much, and by 2022 we wanted to double the farmers' income. That is a great challenge still ahead of us. And there is mismatch between rain-fed versus irrigated. Now irrigated area also increased a little bit. Now 50% rain-fed and 50% irrigated. With this, everything is changing. And in rain-fed areas particularly, what kind of priorities we have and where investments are required, NBS LLP can certainly provide a great input in devising the policy and prioritizing the investment in rain-fed areas also. Presently, what we are doing is a traditional kind of soil survey. And with traditional kind of soil survey and land resource inventarization, time and again I speak this point, it may take years together. If in last 5 years, we could not reach up to 300 blocks, forget the districts, we could reach only up to 300 blocks. How many more years it will require if you want to go for 1:10,000 scale mapping in this country? Dalwai sir, I would like to inform you that this institute has made wonderful attempts, and Chandran has already told. The first map was prepared in early 90s, and it was at 1:1 million scale. And that map was really the first kind of inventory available in the country that has really gave a way forward for different policy investment priorities. And those days, even Niti Aayog was not there. Those days, the planning commission was there, and the planning commission in NARP stage, you are aware of NARP also. So in NARP days, they came up with some agroclimatic zones. Then this institute first time came with the agroecological region, which were more comprehensive. It takes all ecological parameters into account and divided country into 20 agroecological regions. And then these regions were subsequently divided into sub-regions. So these agroecological sub-regions, they give very fair idea of whole ecology, not only soil type, soil, climate, the length of growing period, the rainfall, everything. So it is so comprehensive, and based on that comprehensive information, many of the research projects in ICAR institutes have taken place. And what today we are looking everywhere, there is a boost in production and productivity. It came only because we were able to delineate every region very precisely. If we go by agroclimatic region classification of planning commission previously, probably we'd have landed somewhere else. So subsequently, with the climate change impact, this institute tried to revise the maps, and this agroecological region maps also very recently revised. We are still in the debate, and we are dialoguing on various approaches there. Similarly, the priority land, what we call the priority area analysis or prime land analysis. Prime land analysis also being taken by this institute, and this also requires some discussion. And at suitable platform, I would discuss with you, and we will come up with the proper this prime land analysis for the country. Similarly, when we come to the policy level, the input of this, the output of this institute, results of this institute, what they do every time, whether it is land resource inventarization or their association in project like Sujala you are very well aware with, or any World Bank funded projects, or they take inventarization projects from different states also. So a huge information is available. This information that has basically the in-depth analysis of soil. It is not like soil health card or something. Soil health card, you were there, we together work. So it speaks only surface soils. But this institute, where whole profile is taken into consideration, and the information available with this institute, it has inbuilt boundaries and inbuilt informations, and that are associated with the soil genesis, how these soils will form, and how climate impacts the soil formation, and how these soils could be utilized for various purposes. So this kind of land uses are possible, but there requires a blend of policy. Then only it is possible to come with some doable tools which will be helpful to this country. So this institute really made wonderful things in the past, and a lot of achievements to be celebrated. And on this occasion, once again, I congratulate all the staff members of NVSS LUP for meeting once again in 44th year and celebrating the achievements. And once again, I congratulate to all the winners who received awards today. And I would like to tell to all the scientists that keep doing good work. Again, I speak that always it is individual who makes an organization great. All of you are very bright scientists, and I hope you'll be keep doing your great work, good work in future also. When we meet next year for the next Foundation Day, that time we may have more to celebrate, and probably we'll be doing much better than what we did in the past. So with this, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. And we are indeed inspired. Now, it is the turn of our architects and architects of dreams that we are seeing, or perhaps the person who will be helping for doubling the farmers' income, Dr. Ashok Dalwai, sir, please address.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. My dear friend, with whom I have been working for the last 5 years, Dr. Sunil Kumar Chaudhary, Dr. P. Chandran, Director, Dr. Ashok Dhawan, Vice Chancellor, and other Vice Chancellors who may be here, all the directors of different institutions, all the scientists, all the staff of different sub-centers and regional centers of National Bureau of Soil Survey and Land Use Planning, and all the dear participants who have joined. Thank you very much for inviting me to be with you at this prestigious institute. Thank you very much for your kind words. And I was extremely happy to see the presentation that Dr. Chandran made. It's very clear that you have been firing on all the cylinders: science, technology, extra and co-curricular activities. The bouquet of achievements that you presented is highly impressive. Not only since its initiation in 1956, and more so after it got consolidated as a national bureau mandated to take up soil survey and land use planning under the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. But even in the last 1 year, you have made further additions to your cap of success. And all this is possible only because there is good leadership at the level of Director General Dr. Mahapatra, supported by Dr. Sunil Kumar, who is directly in charge of the Natural Resource Management. And of course, the head of the center, Dr. Chandran. But certainly, no single individual can do everything. It is a teamwork. And that you people concentrated on all dimensions of human personality, different aspects of the organization, has made it possible for you and your scientists to contribute to nation building. It has also made it possible for individual scientists and technologists to be recognized by way of awards. You also made it possible for the sports lover to participate and win prizes at the ICAR level. And the fact that so many wanted to join, as the DDG was saying, goes to show the love that all of them have as a community of soil scientists, agronomists, or in general scientists who are committed to natural resource management. I would like to congratulate all of you, and I'm aware that you have done a lot of work in the taxonomy and the morphological studies. You've built the orders of the soils, and ordering the Indian soils is not easy because India is host to almost every other soil that is there on the globe. India is a rich country in terms of nature, very diverse in terms of agroclimates, very diverse in terms of soils, and it's a vast land, 329 million hectares. So anything that you do is a big order. And the fact that you have been able to deal with this in these aspects is something extremely credible. And therefore, on this occasion, as you celebrate the 44th foundation of the National Bureau, I would like to congratulate all the directors who have served the center, all the scientists who have served the center over the last many decades, and all of you now who are committed to take this legacy forward. So whenever we celebrate the Foundation Day, it is the birthday. So I wish you many, many happy returns of the day and many, many successful and meaningful years and decades ahead. And before I share some of my thoughts, let me begin where we should be beginning. I always personally consider that agriculture is the beginning of not just the economy, it's the beginning of civilization. That the human civilization has marched to this particular place only because man 12,000 years ago learned how to husband the seeds and the animals that were there in the forest areas. It took a long time for him. But once he began to husband the seeds and crops and the animals, he has moved ahead because that gave scope for settlement. And human settlement has what has evolved into civilization and made the growth of philosophy, religion, and science possible. And these three are extremely important: philosophy, religion, and science. They are the guiding principles of society. Even today in the 21st century, we're all guided by philosophy, we're all guided by religion, we're all guided by science. The beauty is that humankind allows for diversity in all these aspects. And science as it is committed to truth. It is based on observations, based on evidences, can be replicated anywhere at any point of time. So we are all here in the business of science. So we shall take science forward. Now, talking about agriculture, we must laud our scientists, we must sing praises of our farmers, and of course also pay tribute to the policy makers who have made it possible for India to be food secure. But today is no time to rest and stay back and look at the past that has happened. As I say, the situation is dynamic. The challenges are always there, and every challenge is an opportunity. Every opportunity is an excitement. So today's challenge, not just for India, but for entire globe, is to move away from fossil-based economy to bioeconomy. Fossil resources built over millions of years have been all exhausted since the Industrial Revolution began 200 years ago. And we are on Earth not here to close by 21st century. We are going to go here on and on and on. If that is the way forward, then we need sustainability. And if we need sustainability, we need to ensure that the economy, whether in the industry sector or in the service sector, or any other sector of the economy, is all fed by a renewable form of resources. And renewable form of resources can come only from biologically destined production systems. And that is agriculture, and that is forestry. Hence, all of us who deal with agriculture and forestry or any other biological system of production that includes animal husbandry and fisheries and aquaculture, we are all here to drive the economy in the future. So let us say that in the 21st century, we are being mandated newly to take the economy forward, which is quite distinct from what it was when it began during the Industrial Revolution. It was all based on fossil resources, coal and iron, bauxite, petroleum products. Today, all these things are going to come from our agriculture. So we need a new look at the agriculture, research, agriculture practice, agriculture management, and agriculture policies. So now, as far as our today's program is concerned, which deals with land survey and soils, or land and soil, these are two very important things. Land, as you all know, is a bioproductive system that hosts soil and water, vegetation, other forms of biota, and enables hydrological processes, geological processes. So that is land. And incidentally, land is immutable, unalterable. Land is a finite quality. If that is the case, and if land is the terrestrial form of our productive system, which hosts the soil, there is an organic link between land, water, and soil. So when we are talking about sustainability, it is extremely important that we treat land, soil, and water along with other components of this entire ecosystem in an organic form and a sustainable manner. And as all of us are aware, the basic definition of sustainable land management is to ensure that all these components of this land, which I said as soil, water, etc., etc., they all are integrated in a reconcilable manner, not in a competitive manner, in a complementary and a supplementary manner, such that we are able to enable these functions are continued without any impairment, and they continue to serve the human cause. And when you talk of human cause, it includes animals, it includes the livestock, it includes the fishery world, it includes the entire ecology. So we need to have a sustainable land management approach, and that is extremely critical. Now, coming down to soil, which is one important component of that land, as we're aware, soil is something that has been formed by nature over millions of years. As they say, it takes thousands of years for synthesis of soil, but then we need to therefore sustain it. If we do not care for it, it won't care for us. That is the importance of soil. At the scientific level, it carries out very important and basic functions. And that we need to keep in mind if we want to tailor our policies. That first thing is it helps us in nutrition recycling. And nutritional recycling is the basic thing of any soil management. Second one is it helps us to hold water and helps in water management. Third, it helps us in maintaining the biodiversity. And fourth, very important component is that it helps us in storing, in transforming, in filtering various kinds of compounds that are there. And fifthly, of course, what is visible to a common man, the physical stability that soils provide to the entire thing. So if we want these 5 basic functions of soil to be continued in a sustainable basis, we need to bring science and practices which are extremely important, which are extremely scientific. And when we talk about nutrition and recycling, we must also keep in mind that it helps us to carry out 4 of the important services, ecological services that we call. And ecological service is something that always must be in the minds of both scientists and practitioners and policymakers. And the first of them is that it helps us to give us, it provides basic services, the food, the fodder, the feed. And now I was talking to you about the industrial raw material for the bioeconomy. All these things are possible only because soil can provide this. Then helps us in regulating, whether it is the flood control or water management, water retention, water holding capacity, or soil formation itself. All these things are regulated by the soil. We have to ensure that it happens in a continuous basis. And third, it gives us support. And the support services, whether it is carbon sequestration, for example, how do you ensure that it happens? And fourthly, which is once again from the common man's perspective, the aesthetic value of the soil. So all these four are ecological services that soils continuously give us. We therefore, both at scientists level and the common man's level and the policymakers level, the five fundamental characteristics, or the scientific characteristics of a soil, and the four important ecological services that it provides must be always ensured. And therefore, as they say, sustainable soil management is to ensure that all these ecological services are enabled, particularly the regulatory support and the cultural aspects of the soil are maintained in such a manner that its provisional role of supporting food and fodder and fiber, feed, etc., are possible. And that's what I think we're all here to look at. As they say, that on such important days, it is we look back at what we have done and what we should be doing, because there's nothing to rest of the laurels, as they say. Now, friends, let me share with you a few of the challenges which you know, but then it is important that we remind ourselves that there are certain challenges, and these challenges come because of the dynamism that happens not just within the country but the world over, or rather the mother planet Earth. The first thing, as far as India is concerned, is that the challenge comes from population itself. The population pressure is increasing. We have grown from 32 crore at the time of independence to 131 crore. That means we added 100 crore population to this. Whereas land is inelastic, as they say. We had 328 million hectares. We are continuing with 328 billion hectares. And it is possible that some of the land has got eroded on the coastal, along the coast. It's possible. So we don't have, in fact, as far as land use data is concerned, we still have data for only 309 million hectares. We still are not sure of another 20 million hectares. We are always counting 328 million hectares, but detailed land use data is available for 309 million hectares. And now, because of the increasing pressure and inelasticity of the land, per hectare availability of land has decreased from 0.89 hectares in 1991 to 0.08 hectares now. Look at the reduction. I'm not talking agricultural land. I'm just talking about the total land comprising agriculture, forest, unculturable wasteland, culturable wasteland, barren land, all these things together, the per capita availability of land has come down. The implication is that we have to bring in land use planning in such a scientific and discrete manner that we are able to sustain all the requirements of the economy and not just agricultural economy forward. So now that this pressure is building further, how do we ensure that we are able to build a land use policy for the country by deploying the modern emerging technologies? Because as DDG was rightly saying, it is not possible for us to take up manual survey all the time. We need results in real time, quick time. And if we take endless time, by the time we completed the last block, the first block would have undergone a massive change, because today climate change is order of the day. And all kind of land use planning comes from temperature, comes from precipitation, comes from climate, comes from growth season, comes from various other edaphic factors, various other kinds of factors. And the way changes are taking place in our society, on our earth, we have to get real time. The climate change is another next challenge. And climate change is a challenge both with respect to soil as well as water and also the biodiversity. When it comes to soil, as you know, the increase in temperature, increase in the carbon dioxide, which are the two important features of a climate change, they interfere into the soil formation process. Soil formation process, you know better than me, is a biogeological process. And once there's a high temperature, there's a high carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, then naturally the soil formation gets impacted very badly. So climate change to that extent is very inimical to us, to the soils, the people who are concerned with soil. And when it comes to water, climate change has got extremely deleterious impact. The reason is that in India, we have the water sources from only two sources. One is the precipitation and one is from the Himalayan glaciers. Now, 94% of our water source is from monsoons. Only 6 to 8% is from the Himalayan glaciers, which also are melting down. Hence, monsoons which are dependent upon the climate change, they're undergoing a transformation in terms of the quantum of rainfall, but more importantly, the distribution pattern. And distribution pattern is getting more and more infrequent in the sense that we have high intensity on point of time and dry spells for a long time. When you have this kind of a situation, naturally the soils get impacted, no doubt. But what happens is that the erosion that takes place with the flooding system of the monsoon is extremely dangerous. Now, we are all aware that one of the reasons for the loss of soil fertility is the soil erosion because the topsoil is getting eroded. And we are all aware that against the average permissible limit of 5 to 5.4 million tons of soils per hectare, we are losing 14 to 15 million tons. And what happens to this eroded soil? Erosion because of water, because of air, or some other factors. Unfortunately, 60% of that is actually flowing into the oceans. Only 30% is flowing into the other water bodies, inland water bodies, which we may be able to reclaim. And 10% goes and redeposits on other soils. But then it is a soil loss because agricultural land gets affected, fertility gets affected. So we see that there's a close relationship between soil, water, and climate change and the population pressure that is building on the whole system. And these things together, the human population, the soil characteristics, the water management, they impact the biodiversity. India, luckily, has been home to one of the richest biodiversities. In fact, it accounts for 8% of the biological variations in the world, both in the floral and the faunal domains. In floral domain, it is supposed to be having nearly 96,000 types of species. In the faunal world, it is supposed to be having 46,000 types of species. Very few countries can actually boast of this kind of rich biodiversity. Now, the biodiversity above ground and below ground, both must be treated differently. When soils cannot sustain the biodiversity on the ground, it means that there's something wrong below the ground. Now, below the ground also, there's so much of biodiversity. India is home to one of the richest varieties, ranges of fungi, algae, bacteria. All these things are extremely important because soils, as we all know, when you talk of soils, it is predicated upon not just the physical properties, it is predicated upon the physical properties, the chemical properties, and also the biological properties. Today, when people are saying that the marginal rate of returns to investment in agriculture are decreasing, what they mean is that we need to add more and more fertilizers, we need to add more and more hardware to get one incremental rise in the quantum of output. So that is the decreasing rate of marginal returns. And all this is only because we have lost soil fertility. When we talk of soil fertility, it is a biological property. When people are now today talking about moving away from the inorganic fertilizers to the organic forms, I think their concern is how to rebuild the biological properties of the soil. Otherwise, I don't think so NPK by itself is bad. In fact, many studies show that if you have NPK plus farmyard manure, it's good for the soils. Because after all soils are not uniform in ratio of the NPK or the micronutrients. So we need to have some external inputs, no doubt about it, but all in a balanced manner. But what is extremely important is from the perspective of maintaining soil structure and promoting soil biological properties, we certainly need to ensure how do we build the organic carbon. And all the studies show that over the last 70 years since independence, because of extraction, because of mining, and because farmers have not been attuned to adding the farmyard manure, there has been a huge loss of organic carbon. And what was around 1% is supposed to have come down to around 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, and 0.5. So how do we rebuild the soil organic carbon? So all these are the new challenges. And talking about water, because water is such a cousin of soil that the soil and water are two important critical inputs for any kind of biological system. Let's take a bit of data on water too. At the time of independence, or more appropriately 1951, when the first planning started, India had 5,500 cubic meters of water per capita. And what has it come down to? It has come down to around 1,500 by 2011. It is expected by 2020, it would be around 1,400 cubic meters. It will come down to around 1,200 by 2025 and keep going down thereafter. So what are we going to do? And this, please imagine, we are all agriculture people here. We have together arrogated to ourselves of the total utilizable capacity water in the country, 86% to ourselves. 86% of the utilizable water in the country has been arrogated by agriculture. We have left only 14% for industry, for infrastructure, habitations, and all other purposes. Whereas the global average, agriculture uses 70%. This implies that in India, the water use efficiency is not good. We need to at least come to global levels in terms of water use efficiency. Within our own country, the water use efficiency between rain-fed areas and irrigated areas, there's a huge dichotomy. And there are variations from place to place. Otherwise, we would not have a system where in Indo-Gangetic plains, the water table is going down and majority of the community development blocks in Punjab state now being declared as dark zones. Why has this happened? I think one of the reasons is that we have failed to understand how do we use water? How do you manage water? Now, of the total water available in our country for utilization, nearly 690 billion cubic meters is surface water, and around 390 billion cubic meters is groundwater. That means groundwater is much less than the surface water available. But look at the irrigation potential that we have created. Of the irrigation potential that were created, 62% comes from groundwater. Only 38 to 40% comes from the surface water. This is despite the fact that we built large number of multi-purpose irrigation projects, medium scale irrigation projects, small irrigation projects, and even minor irrigation projects. Notwithstanding this, even today, 62% of our dependable source of irrigation comes from groundwater. So this is the reason. This is what is implying that we have been extracting so much of groundwater that it is no more sustainable. And we now therefore need to see how the water holding capacity of the soil, the percolation, etc., groundwater recharging is rebuilt such that we're able to sustain groundwater, sustain the soil profile, the subsoil profile, and the soil profile in such a manner that we are able to promote agriculture production on a sustainable basis. So these are the new challenges. Talking about specifically organic carbon, as I was telling you that we have come down, how do we therefore start now re-looking at new policies such that we are able to sustain these things? Notwithstanding that we have been talking about hydroponics, aquaponics, vertical gardening, terrace gardening, etc., soil will still continue to be the major means of production for all times to come. Because soil is not just only for production, soil is there for all other purposes. But the indiscreetness with which you're all treating, I think something we have to stand up and look and advise the policymakers. Look at brick making, for example. In our own country, at least the top 3 feet of soil is dug everywhere, particularly in the Indo-Gangetic plain, to make bricks because the human population is increasing. More and more construction is happening, more and more infrastructure is coming up. But this loss of topsoil is a crime against agriculture. It's a crime against human civilization. And the data shows that at least 45,000 hectares of land in a country is dug every year to make bricks. And the rate at which we are actually progressing, we may reach a level of 90,000 hectares soon. And if we are going to dig 90,000 hectares of fertile soils every year, just come to think of it, what's going to happen to our 140 million hectares? I told you that land and agriculture is also very high in India. In fact, in India, even today, 42% of the total 328 million hectares has been brought under agriculture. And that data is substantiated with the fact that since 1951, the total extent of land under cultivable wasteland, non-cultivable wasteland, fallows, and other kinds of land has come down drastically from 42% to 26%. That means we have diverted so much of land which was there as common property resource to either agriculture or to infrastructure or to industry or to human habitations. Now, how are we going forward? Within the agriculture itself, we reached a peak of 143 million hectares in 1991. We started from 97 million hectares in 1951. We kept diverting a lot of this land from outside to agriculture, reached a peak of 143 million hectares, and then it has decelerated to 140 million hectares today. In the last 1 decade itself, we have lost 1 million hectares of agricultural land. So in future, because of competition from other activities in the economy, industry and infrastructure, and human habitation, agricultural land will continue to get diverted. So how do we ensure that our soil fertility is able to sustain the increasing demand for food and non-food production? So these are all new challenges that we all really need to look at in a scientific manner. So if there is going to be a new, land kind of categorization, what we need today in India is a scientific land use planning, where we are able to clearly delineate that these are the prime agriculture land and under no circumstances are we going to divert this. Look at what the United States does. Yes, they have a very scientific system of land classification, and within that they're defined very clearly that the prime agricultural land, which depend upon the ability to respond with minimal management, with high productivity, are not going to be touched. In a vast country like America with less population, if they are so sacrosanct about the agricultural land, I think in India with high density and low agricultural land, we must be extremely clear about not allowing diversion of agricultural land for other purposes unless it becomes so inevitable. And that so-called inevitability itself has to be very difficult. We have to create that kind of a no-go area system. So I think what the NBS must be really doing today is to give us a clear idea about what the land use classification should be at the national level, and not just for the agriculture purpose, but all kinds of purposes. We must be able to clearly delineate those uncultivable lands, those uncultivable lands, those common lands, including the pasture lands, etc., so that they all can be sort of demarcated, they can be zoned, and ensure that they are used for land degradation neutrality. How do you build pasture lands, silvipastoral systems, build soils, build organic carbon, build all kinds of things that are going to sustain the human needs. And second one is the forest land, though very sacrosanct. Luckily, we have the Forest Conservation Act 1980, which has ensured that there is not much of molestation of the forest lands. We must actually salute the forest officers who have been very, very rigorously able to guard the forest lands. And there has been an increase in the canopy intensity over the last 20 years, thanks to the interventions made. But I think one shortcoming there, where I think your input is required, your technical advice is required, is that do not have a knowledge about the soil science in the forest areas. They have not been able to build a robust soil information system within the forest lands. Within the forest areas, there is a lot of degraded forest. There's a need for the degraded forest. So the technical advice that will come from soil scientists like you will actually help the forest department to enrich their soils within the forest areas. We have 22% area. In fact, we should be having 33% area under forests. But because of this kind of competition from other zones, we have not been able to reserve 33%. But at least that 22% area that we have been able to reserve for the forest areas must be guarded at any cost, because they help in biodiversity. They help us in giving us different kinds of wild races when we need for our plant breeding or other kinds of biological scientific activities. So I think we have to look not at a compartmental manner. It's time that all of us look at India as one. There's 329 million hectares as we looked at one, and how do we use it in a more scientific manner? How do you go vertical integration rather than just horizontal expansion? For example, urbanization. Can we now substitute all horizontal spread by vertical integration? More and more of multi-storied buildings. Why do we require huge space that each individual is utilizing to build his houses? So friend, there are so many challenges. that we really are facing in the new area. So we need to look at comprehensive policies. So before I close, let me reiterate, yes, there have been a lot of policies, but all of them are actually compartmented. We have a water use policy, national water policy, national forest policy. We have got a national mission on sustainable agriculture. We have a policy for rain-fed areas. We have all kinds of policies. But unfortunately, they don't seem to be talking to one another. When we prepare a district irrigation plan, for example, the district irrigation plan may not be talking to the soil policy. I'm very happy to listen to you that now you are coming down to 1:10,000 scale so that the village level planning is possible. Ultimately, we have to zero in to the village level at the farm level. So whether that soil policy and the water policy, do they talk to each other? Does a forest policy actually talk to these two together? So we need, I think, a national policy, a national board. Though we have been talking about national land use board and state land use boards, they have been there for many, many years. But unfortunately, they have not been very active. I myself was in charge of a state land use board in Odisha. I realized nothing was happening under that land use board. They were not knowing, for example, what the watershed management directorate is doing. I'm just giving a concrete example. And this is the system in our countries. Everything is there, but they don't talk to one another. The silos are there. So I think NBS should be now taking the lead. And from the NARA side, we are willing to work with you that can we start building a national land use policy? The Department of Land Resources under the Ministry of Rural Development. They started something, they put up a draft, but it has not gone forward. So can you and we together work with the Department of Land Resources, along with our Deputy Director General and the Director General, and see how we actually take up the responsibility for building a national land use policy. And within that, a national agricultural land use policy, because they'll be more specific. So we can actually start looking at all this thing in a more meaningful manner. So going forward, I think what we need to do is deploy more and more of emerging technologies. For example, the sensors. Now, can you move away from wet chemistry-based land soil sample testing to sensor-based testing? Because as DDG was rightly saying, we'll get fairly good accuracy, 80 to 90% accuracy if we go just by spectrography. So can we, so that we get a real-time quick phase data, and then bring other kinds of emerging technologies, geospatial technology, the remote sensing technology, the blockchain technology, artificial intelligence, big data analytics, Internet of Things, all these new technologies that are now available in our country. In fact, our country is one of the most advanced, and under the digital agriculture, under the NEGPA, which is one of the important pillars of the digital India, can we bring all these things together and see, we build a strong database for the land use and the soils of India. And the second one is, as I was telling you, that how do we make this data available? I think the most important thing is data democratization. Many times the data and information that we all build is not made available to others. If we have an open data access, open access policy, then the advantage is not just the public sector scientists, not just the public sector policy makers, but even the private sector players with access to this thing, and they will also research, building up of technology, evolving new policies and practices, etc. Because this is the time where both public and private sector need to work together. So friends, my appeal to you as we celebrate the 44th Foundation Day is that we now come out with new policies which is based on responding to the new situations, the dynamic situations that are arising, particularly the climate change. In fact, the German think tank says India is the 5th most vulnerable nation to climate change. We're all aiming now to control the temperature rise to 2 degrees Celsius, whereas the expectation is to rise to 4 degrees Celsius. Now, even if rise of 2 degrees Celsius by 21st century is as though we think that the world is going to end by 21st century. World, this 80 years ahead is nothing. Imagine we have spent, the Big Bang happened. The Big Bang happened how many billions of years ago? It happened 13.8 billion years ago. The world, the universe has started 13.8 billion years ago. Next 80 years is not even a speck of dust in the universal span of time. So I don't know why we're talking about containing the temperature to 2 degrees Celsius by 21st century. That can be only an immediate target. So I think the world has to work together as one to see how climate change does not happen. How do you create win-win situations? For example, sequestering carbon from the atmosphere into the soil. If the carbon has reduced in the soil and there is excess of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, how do you draw that into our system? Here, we can build a win-win situation. We need more perennial trees. We need more of green cover. We need more of mulching. Organic farming, for example, cannot happen without the bioresource. Even in a state like Sikkim, with 80% of the land under forest, their organic farming cannot be sustained because there's not enough of bioresource. So the challenge is actually to build new agroforestry policy, new bamboo mission policies, new green cover policies, new nitrogen fixing species, so that we're continuously having a green cover. 365 days, our earth, Mother Earth, should be under some green cover, not just on agriculture, but also the forest or the pasture lands, all the common lands. It must be continuously on the green cover. Because once you have a green cover, it helps not only the soil, but it also helps in the general ecology, the general habitation. So I think there is a method in what we can do. So we will have to ultimately convert the competition into cooperation. Today, the competition is between two sets of people. For example, between industry and agriculture. There's a competition between the use of the agriculture for food and for non-food. There's a competition for water between agriculturists and the inhabitants. So we need to convert all that into a cooperative model, and this science can help us. For example, I told you agroforestry. It can sequester carbon from atmosphere into the soil, and we need more soil there. So this is how I think you can all come out with new kinds of models, that are innovative, that are creative, and then I'm sure we can go. Let me end up by saying that science has no years of limitations. Science can keep expanding. Only our imagination is a limitation. It's just that we need to be creative, we need to be innovative, and continuously apply the fundamentals of science to the applied requirements today and find new solutions to the new challenges. So thank you very much. I would like to congratulate the director and all his team of scientists and support staff in all the regions and the central office. And I was also the Deputy Director General and the entire ICR, who have been doing yeoman service of our country. And we must salute the National Agriculture Research System. The ICR and the state agriculture universities together have been actually are the one who have made us food secure, are the one who actually built a huge bioeconomy in our country. And we look forward to them all the time for their guidance and their services for our country. So thank you very much. And I would like to thank my friend Sunil Kumar, because he's found the time to sit with me, though he's a very busy person in ICAR. Thank you very much. And once again, congratulations, all the best, and Godspeed. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your blessing. And at the last stage of the program, I propose a vote of thanks. Dr. Dalwai, sir, you touched upon so many challenges and so many domains, and you talked about language classification, language policy, forest. For your information, sir, FRI is in touch with us, and they want to do some land research inventory studies in all the divisions of the country. And unfortunately, because of this pandemic, we fell out for the time being. We are still in touch, and perhaps we will isolate ourselves after 2 or 3 months. So most of the points, most of the challenges that you have thrown up are already there, but nicely highlighted and stressed upon the need to do something very seriously. So thank you, sir, for having agreed to be much and delivering a nice lecture. I was seeing the feedback. Many people were appreciative of your brief but very emphatic points. And before I thank our DDG, let me apologize to the participants that somehow we had booked 500 participants meeting, but because of some technical glitch, only 100 persons were allowed at a time. So many persons could not join, though they wanted to hear Dr. Dalwai sir as well as Dr. Chaudhary sir. But anyway, my apologies once again. DDG Dr. Chaudhary is also to be thanked. As I know, sometimes he gets at 3 o'clock in the morning and has to attend international meetings, national meetings, and I don't think there is a more busy person in the whole IPS system. And as always, he is required. And whatever thoughts he has shared that we have to overcome traditional survey methods and find out ways and means, tools and methods to overcome the constraints that we have been facing, and we need to devise something innovative to do our fast forward ourselves to keep the pace with technologies and the world. And sir, we will surely under your guidance making the good progress. So I thank the two gentlemen and the guests. I also thank the Vice Chancellor, especially Dr. Jawan, who is there. Sir, thank you very much for joining. There are other Vice Chancellors as well. Prominent among this is our own colleague, Dr. Tapas Bhattacharya. Then Dr. Vishwanatha from Rauri. And some of the meeting rooms, I cannot see the videos, so I don't know who are the persons, but whoever has logged in, I thank all the VCs, all the NRM directors. Then we have our retired personnel from NBSS, like Dr. Bhatta, and so many other seniors who made it a point, despite of the pandemic constraints and the technology that we have adopted, virtual meeting is not something very easy for retired persons, but made it a point to join us. So thank you all the heads of regional centers, scientists, technical officers, administrative staff, and journalists. Thank you once again. Thank you so much. So with your permission, Chief Guest Sir and the Guest of Honor Sir, I will close the meeting.
अभी close मत करो. Hey, close मत करो. Let the others talk to each other if they want to talk something. Let them have a chat.
Okay.
Sir, officially the meeting is closed, sir. We can.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
सबको